So good afternoon, February 24th, 2014. This is CISG 114, Section 1, Web Technology and Life. Today is the first class in the third grade, day number 4. Okay, let's get started. Welcome back. Today we have a new friend, okay, beautiful girl who just added into this course. And then, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit? I give you at most 2 minutes time. So who you are, what's your major, why do you take this course, and any expectations?
My name is Vicky. I'm year 1 student. My major is public administration.
Welcome, Vicky. Year 1 student, public administration. Let's give some hands for Vicky. Thank you. Do you have anything to add? Anything more you want to share with us? Okay, thank you. Waiting to know more of you, okay? Thank you very much. And this is CISG 114, Section 1, Web Technology and Life, okay? So, we have a little accident. It's okay. Thank you very much. The reasons why it comes off the table, it's very simple, but it's a very good example of inquiry-based learning. So this is the beginning of week number 3. To save you some time, I moved the website to week number 3. And so if you look at this week's theme, it's still inquiry-based learning, and 2 modules are to be discussed, and today one, another one on Thursday. So we come to the context of ethics and social responsibility in the information age. Okay, the word ethics is a big term. The word social responsibility means something we have to do all together, not just for ourselves. And then on module number 3, we try to touch the big idea of digital divide. Okay, divide means there's a big divisions between those who have something and those who does not have anything. In the context of digital device means those who have the access to the digital resources like get online, and those who don't, not even have a computer, no internet access. Okay, let me turn on the air conditioner first. Now, we're going to walk through some video today, but before we begin, let us try to get back to something very important that you should have done it by the end of last week, and that is the student pairing informations. Now let's take a look at the informations here and see if the name is here. Okay, Kenneth name is here, don't worry. And then Hoi Yan. You know that Hoi Yan is paired already, pair number 4, and Yin Zhuang is pair number 1, and Joanna is pair number 2, and then YC is pair number 6, and then Rafael, not yet pair up yet, Yin Yi, pair number 4, Ji Ying, pair number 1, Mina, not pair yet, and then Vicky, okay, is it Vicky here? Okay, thank you very much. Not pair yet, okay, and then we have Helen, pair number 5, and then we have Wing Yan, pair number 2, and then we have Man Leung, pair number 6, and Brad, not pair yet, and then Li Chun, Kathy, pair number 3, and Xerxes, is it the way how to pronounce it? Xerxes, right? Pair number 5, Wendy, pair number 3. So how many of you are not paired yet? Now let me try to invite those of you who are not paired up yet. Then I will give you some time to talk about it in the second half hour, so that you will make up your mind who's going to be your pair partner. Okay, not many, just 4 to 5. We have altogether, I guess, 17 students okay, in this class. So it's not an even number of students, so at least one student who's going to be orphaned because we have 2 persons per pair. And then that student has the privilege to choose 1 pair, okay? So let us try to see what's going to happen in the second half hour. So I finished reporting this to you, and I've already given feedback to more than 12 journals from week number 1, and I think I need to do something similar for week number 2 too. Remember, there is no grade there, because don't worry, feedback first to make sure you know what to do, right? And then the grade will only be given to what you're going to submit by the time you need to submit something for learning contract number 1, learning contract number 2, learning contract number 3, and then the learning portfolio. And if you have already looked at my teacher's message released yesterday, you know that I already invite you to go to read something on the assessment rubrics, okay? That is the assessment rubrics. Something that you need to be fully aware of when you submit your work for grading, okay? You need to follow the format of OIA, and then once you're finished following the format of OIA, you need to come to take a good look at these rubrics to see how much is my journal worth based on the assessment criteria here. And then you need to take a look at the forum participations, and then your report, and then something like your blogs, etc. Now we're going to walk you through some of these, but not now. Let us get back to where we have been as of last week, okay? So we walked you through some basic idea of inquiry-based learning, and we ended with helping you to understand something on what is information technology. And I invited you to go home and spend some time to watch, if you have already enough time, 4 hours. The first documentary is Technology of the Future, and then of most important for last week, it's Digital Nations and the Generation Like the 2 documentary produced by PBS. That's going to be very excellent. And then we have not touched anything on the specific of what is a knowledge society. I did not seem to talk much about this, and I would like to look out from your journal if any one of you have chosen, based on the reading list of the second week, which item below the question, what is a knowledge society, then I'm going to provide some feedback. Well, so far, not many of you have chosen to do that, yeah? It's okay. So let us try to start today's class with something very interesting. Let's talk about ethics of the internet privacy, okay? I think this short video has given you a lot of shocking information if you pay attention to it. One of the impressive sentences: everything you do online is by default public, and it's going to be private only through efforts. What does it mean? It means if you're not conscious enough when you go online using your web browser, getting in touch with your Facebook or whatever it is in any kind of social media, what you have left over there will be there forever. And people, a lot of people, can make the best use of those clues to discover who you are, what your connections are, who your friends are. And many of the people who have unconsciously left a lot of the personal data there, when they go for an interview, a lot of the time, if they fail the interview, it's because their potential employer discovers something not quite positive about them after they have done some online search of who you are. And of course, they know how to search our information. So, well, let's come back to the term ethics. Okay, what is meant by ethics? And of course, if you have a device with you, you can press into Google and you can try to dig out some information about ethics. So let me just try to make it simple. Ethics is some kind of, let's say, common rules acceptable to the society, which tells us basically what is right and what is wrong. Okay? So you know that the ethical standard tells us if a letter is sent to my family, which is addressed to me, and I will believe that my parent is not going to open it, my brother or sisters are not going to open it because they know that if there's not a letter addressed to them, they should not open it. It's an ethical standard. Okay? So now in the context of the intellect, and try to put into perspective some example, which is the time for you to talk about it in 3 to 5 minutes, that you have experienced before when you're using the intellect, particularly through the web browser or something like Facebook, whatever it is, which you believe you should not carry on, or you should not continue what you did. Okay? Or you believe someone should have stopped doing something, but they continue. And the consequence is, for example, you can give some example. And remember, may not be in this class, last class in Friday, I got 2 students sharing, and one student told me a very interesting example of her personal experience in Macau. One summer, while she was looking for a part-time job in Macau, she encountered a very interesting advertisement in the newspaper. And the newspaper said, if you're interested in this job, go online, answer some questions, and we're going to arrange an interview for you. And the student did what was told, went online, answered some question, attached her CV there, and then after that, she discovered that her information was broadcast to a lot of different people in Macau and was made public. And then she discovered this is not right. I'm applying for a job, and then I submit the CV, and then my CV was broadcast and made public. This is my personal information. And it was online until today. And she asked me what can she do to help turn it around. Well, I remember in Macau we have, fortunately, an Office of Personal Privacy Act, something like this. And this office now is taking actions to help individuals who happen to be taken advantage of online as much as they could, and she need to officially report to the police first. Okay? And all things like this happen in Macau. Now, there was not absolutely a crime yet, okay? But your intonations was taken advantage of, and you were not informed until later. Now, this is an example I gave. Ethics tells us we should not do something like this, okay? So I'm going to give you 5 minutes time until 3 o'clock, and then you could come up with something of your own. Now I see you have 4 persons here, and I just have 2 persons here, and there are 2 persons there. So I allow the 2 tables come together so that the 4 of you can talk. If you don't want, it's okay, all right? So maybe you can try and think of something. And the guiding question is, what is ethics based on your understanding? And in case you give an example, what should be the ethical behavior acceptable to all? Something like this. Okay? Now, 5 minutes for your coming up with something new on your own. Ethics. I should have given you some more papers. Experience with the examples like what I just given you. Kevin, are you ready to share in a minute? Next class. Okay, thank you. So in this very short video, about less than 2 minutes, okay, it has given you 10 different commandments of not to use computer the way it's supposed to be. Now, some of these may be your personal experience, but now added to your discussions on your table. Now, may I invite some of you to share some of your ethical experience of what is supposed to be and what is not supposed to be, your personal experience, and add to some reminder on this video. Do you have something to start with? Any experience you want to share with us? Yes, looks like you have something. Not yet, okay. When you're ready, okay, do you have something to share with us? Not yet. Do you remember anything? Right. Do you have anything you remember that is related to our discussions today?
Of ethics. So generally speaking, it should be like a kind of moral value.
Moral value, yeah.
But the idea is like about copyright.
Yeah.
Just what I.
Yeah.
So in the West, they think copyright is really bad and etc.
Okay.
But I think China has another culture about copyright. So
Okay.
historically, it was okay to copy
Yeah.
in art or literature.
Yeah.
So I don't think that some software are really expensive as well, and some people cannot afford to buy them in the shops.
Okay.
So I think this copyright issue shouldn't be black and white.
Okay.
It's like some medicine. In some African country, they're not able to pay for this medicine, so they want to use the non-copyright medicine.
Okay.
And sometimes big companies, they don't want them to do this. So it's the same idea with
Okay.
software for the digital divide and this kind of thing.
Okay. Let me try to repeat some of Greg's suggested ideas. Greg suggests the context of copyright could be an example. Well, we know that when we talk about copyright, why not copyleft, but copyright? Okay. There is actually something called copyleft. But copyright means it's if I create something, and when I have registered as something under a legal government, if anybody uses that something without my permission, that is an illegal act. And I should be, as the creator of that copyright, be compensated. So legally speaking, it's not allowed for you to copy someone else's published work. Now, but in the context of countries like China or whatever it is, we discover that a lot of the time when something is created on this part of the world, very expensive, so in such a way that somewhere there, a copycat could be easily created, very similar to a product like this, and it was sold in a very affordable price. And they have functions similar to one another. Well, in an example of software we used, okay, that is one very interesting ethical, not just ethical, it's a legal matter. But since if the copyright is registered in one country, but it was copied somewhere else in another country, well, which is outside the jurisdictions of where it is registered, something has to happen if we want to stop things like this to happen. So we have something called the International Property Right Act or something like this. So that is one example. But if I would like to see if we can understand this example well, we can also give a lot more example when you're using your intellect every day. Can you give me some example? Have you ever seen a picture which is very good from the intellect and you can easily grab it and put it in your desk, or maybe use it as your wallpaper or as a background of your other picture you want to produce? In the context of the intellect domain, if it is not something that could be used without a creative common context, you're actually stealing someone else's work. Although you may not know whose picture is this. That is something everybody might be doing every day without conscious understanding. So in order to help you understand ethical standard, we need to be conscious of what we are talking about first, and have we been doing something without our understanding that it may not be right. And so we need to put something into context. So before we use something, we make sure that we ask enough or let people inform us whenever we did something which is not appropriate. So if we put it in another context of the 10 Commandments of computer, I think some of you must be aware of something. If you happen to walk into a room full of computers, for example, an office, okay, where everybody has an open space, so we have a workstation. And normally, we used to do something like this. We have to remember the password to enter the system. We normally stick the password on a piece of paper in front of our computer, and we write which system it is. This is my password. And normally, you can easily scan things like this when you go into an office, particularly with your iPhone or whatever. And then once you got this information, you can take your time and get into the system with those passwords. Will you do that? Normally not. Normally we won't do something like this. But have you ever used Google Maps? Is it good, 3D? For example, I've never been to, say, Russia, so I want to go to Moscow sometime. But today I can go to Google Maps, I use a 3D and I go to the streets of Moscow. Okay, I can easily say, oh, this is the street, and you can actually use Macau as an example. I often show my son where to go for walking this street. These are produced by Google Maps. Do you know how Google produce things like this? Yes, they have a Google car with a camera and with a very strong computing devices which is able to gather all the intelligence around through the wireless network. And then whichever it goes, Google car is actually collecting a lot of information. That is exactly like it when we walk into a room looking for someone else logging in card and password. And then they can just grab those data and then they do a lot of intelligent analysis of things like this without you knowing, because you have the expertise. That's the reason somehow in Macau or somehow in many places around the world, Google cars are not welcome anymore. Because we actually collect a lot of intelligence. Okay? They make the best use of a lot of these intelligence devices to help them for that purpose without understanding what they're going to do. So practically speaking, if you have to do a project like this, which is very meaningful, everybody loves to go to Google Maps, but if you are actually adding intelligence devices like this, a lot of companies will not like it because you're stealing intelligence products. Okay? So practically speaking, is it right or is it wrong? Now, let me give you one more example. Normally, we don't like being videotaped or taking a picture because we never know what that is being taken advantage of. So normally, if we go to a public area, we want to take a picture, even with our family. If the background of my family's picture includes someone else, we're informed that we're going to take a picture, but with that angle, we might take it in the picture. Would you mind, or do we have to shift a little bit? Have you ever tried to ask people some questions like this when you go to a public area, or take a picture, or make a phone call? No, right? Normally not, unless we got a complaint from someone.
You have too many people in China.
Yeah, right. So that's the ethical, personal ethics, okay, sometimes like this. So now you got some ideas of how you can exercise your freedoms to do some ethical things. And definitely there's something that we need to follow. Let's talk about the responsibility side. For example, I would like to introduce to you the ideas of the business ethics and social responsibility. Now, just now we use Google as an example as a business entity, and when they collect data like this, without informing the people what they're going to make the best use of the data, they are less responsible than what we expect. So, from the perspective of responsibility, they have the social responsibility to inform the public where they are, how they're going to use the data. So let's try to see something on business ethics and social responsibility.
All right, thank you for being here. Today we're going to be talking about business ethics and social responsibility. Very important topic in the world of business, as we've seen from just the last several years. Just the prevalence of unethical behavior, particularly among top management, with issues and situations such as those at Enron and Tyco and WorldCom and countless others, really. that have just made it so much more obvious just the importance of ethical behavior, especially at the top, because as we find, the behavior of top management begins to filter down to the employees at kind of the rank and file positions. And if you're in an organization that ethical behavior is something that is maybe allowed, maybe even encouraged for the sake of getting profits and short-term gains, then obviously that's going to be kind of perpetuated throughout the entire culture of that particular company. So an extremely important part. So over the course of this brief lecture here, we're going to go over really what business ethics is, social responsibility, define that, and then go over some of the more prominent issues facing businesses as they continue to operate in a client such as the one that we're in now. So to start us off, really, what is ethics? Ethics, very simply, are beliefs about what is right and wrong. Essentially, what is good and bad. And obviously, something that's considered to be ethical behavior is something that conforms to our personal beliefs about what is right and what is good. And the interesting thing about ethics is it's something that is kind of in the eye of the beholder, if you will. Meaning that you can have a room full of people and based upon, give them a certain situation, and everyone is going to take away something different, and everyone may have a different leaning with regards to if it is something that is ethical. Now, conversely, unethical behavior is obviously behavior that does not conform to an individual's belief about what is right or good. So essentially, it is something they do not find to be ethical in that sense. And what's interesting is that these are based a lot in part on individual morals and values, and also their social context in which you grew up in. So for example, if you grew up in a home where it was considered to be okay to maybe fudge a little bit on your tax return, maybe claim something as a deduction when in reality it maybe wasn't, something very minuscule, something small. The likelihood is that when you grew up and get to the point to where you're filing your own individual tax returns, that you may view that as acceptable behavior. So it depends a lot upon conditioning, the environment in which you grew up in. Also, obviously, your individual values and different things, and a lot of that, like I said before, was based upon how you grew up and how you were raised, among other things, of course. Now, interestingly enough, there's been a few studies that have been done with regards to why people cheat, lie, steal, all those different types of things. And there was a study done by Dan Ariely, in which he actually published a book which is called The Honest Truth About Dishonesty. And he did a number of different studies with regards to why people essentially lie. And he, essentially, his hypothesis was that people generally lie just a little bit. Not in significant amounts, obviously, those are rare. But everyone generally lies in a small amount. So what you see on your screen, you're probably wondering what this is. This is a matrix, and this is what they used in their actual experiments. So what they did was they passed out a number of these to college students in a large lecture hall. And what they did was they said, you know what, we're going to go ahead and pay you for each one you can solve. And as you can see, there are a number of different, selection of different numbers here. And the idea is that you find the two numbers that can add up to 10. And so students were paid based upon how many they could solve. Okay? So first, they just did the regular experiment. So students could essentially solve, they had, I believe it was about 5 minutes to solve as many as they could. And the average during that study was about 4. And the average person would solve about 4 matrices, essentially getting them, a certain amount of money. I believe they paid them around 10 to 50 cents per matrices. And so what they did after that, they said, you know what, let's add a condition to it. Let's put a shredder in the back of the room and tell the students, you know what, once you're done, go ahead and take your matrices, walk to the back of the room, shred them, and then walk to the front and tell us how many you solved. And so you're obviously instilling some trust in the person that they're going to be honest with you and give you an accurate reading, essentially, of what you performed, your accurate performance. So what they found is the average then increased to 6. Okay, so interestingly enough, everyone kind of got smarter. And so the average was 6. Like I said, they saw 6 matrices. So you may look at this and think, that's not really significant, right? To go from 4 to 6, you know, it's not like anybody saw, let's say, 20. Okay, that would be completely ridiculous, which I believe that was the max that you could actually solve. That's the max that people were given was 20 matrices.
Now, let me just catch the idea here and see if you were following. Let me just ask you some very basic feedback questions after watching 5 minutes from this very simple PowerPoint. The guy is explaining to you what is meant by happiness. And then he quickly on to an experiment done to discover how ethical individual persons are when they were invited to report on the success of a trial. What is that trial? Based on that matrix, they invite people to try to discover solutions. Solution for what? Which number add up together to become 10? So normally, we'll discover which 2 numbers add up together to become 10. And they will ask the individual students or people under the experiment, say within 5 minutes, how many pairs of numbers you discover which will add up to be 10. All right? So, and the interesting way we try to get those information is, normally if the people understand that you're going to check it, they are going to tell you some truths about the trials. So at the very beginning, each person will give you the average of 4 pairs. Okay? But then the experiments will change. And the people said, oh, you don't need to give me to check it. What you need to do is once you solve the problem, you can walk to the back of the room and you can shatter it, destroy this matrix. No one is going to verify this on you. And when you went back to the front room, tell us how many pairs you discovered. And the average jumps up to 6 instead of 4. Okay? So the idea is how you can be honest about your dishonesty and how you can be dishonestly honest about what you do. Okay? So now let me pause at this point. Let me ask you one very simple thing. Now somehow during the semester, I would invite you before you submit the work. You use the rubrics to take a look at how much of your work is going to work with points. The point is 4, 3, 2, 1. Based on the criteria of the rubric, you can tell what exactly the work is going to work. Now, in the past semester, I did invite some of my students to do this. You're going to do a peer assessment for your fellow students. Okay? The peer assessment for your fellow students is, now you will not be able to read the self-proposed score of the other peer, but you have to give a score based on the work you witnessed for other students. But you do not know the name, okay? And then, how are you going to give a score? Well, you were given the work, and then you were given the assessment criteria. And logically speaking, with the work there, with the assessment criteria there, if you are really following the assessment criteria and give the work a score, there should not be a large difference. But the interesting thing is, a lot of the time, there's a lot of differences. But this is one thing that we can be very honest about how ethics practice could actually happen. Now, let's come back to another point here. We are talking about business ethics and social responsibility. Let me remind you an instant. Have you ever been to Hong Kong? I guess not of you have been to Hong Kong, right? And in Hong Kong, one typical electronic money they use is a piece of card called octopus card, right? And I think most of you have octopus card. In Macau, we now taking up, we have Macau what? Macau card? Macau Pass, okay. Now, in Hong Kong, it was a famous story. 2 years ago, the chief executive officer, a woman from the octopus company, was fired. or better say, she was not fired, she resigned, okay? After one very interesting incident was revealed to the public. When you agreed to buy an octopus card, you were invited to fill up a form, okay? In that form, you need to fill out some personal information about your residential address, your home phone number, your mobile phone number, your, somehow they also asked you something very sensitive about your earning and your age too. And it was discovered that Octopus as a company sold to the international marketing company a large number of personal data counted by a human head. Okay, each form represents one paper. In Hong Kong, there are millions of people for a large amount of money, which will help increase the revenue of the company. But when they sold this particular data to the marketing company, these data belong to you and I, okay, you and me. We do not know that they are actually abusing the data we provide to get money. Now, may I ask you, what's wrong here? Do you think there is anything wrong? In what sense? In what sense? Can you think about this? If you believe it's wrong, in what sense? And why is it not good? Can you think about this? Well, some of you may say, well, it does not matter. But some of you may be very sensitive about this. Well, have you ever received some phone call from some company which they're going to sell you something? Okay? What do you think, in what way they can get your number? Although they did not tell you that they actually know your name. Because the next thing to you, closest to a number is your name. Okay? Alright, now you think about this. You do not need to give me an answer at this one. And the second thing, let me show you. I'm talking about business ethics and social responsibility. How many of you have ever gone online and purchased something online? Purchased something online. For example, have you ever bought a book online? Have you ever paid for well, anything you buy online through a credit card? Not yet. Okay, very good. Watch for this step. Now let me tell you that if you have ever used websites like Amazon, I think you know what Amazon is, right? It's a very famous ebook company that now is more than ebook. And if you come back to the Amazon site after at least one purchase, normally they have something recommended for you listed on the front page. They will say, hello, John, welcome back. We have some list of recommendations for you. Okay? And then based on your, some of the time they will say, based on your past records of visiting our companies online, here is a number of items we believe is very good for you. Now this I feel comfortable because I virtually go to visit the website before to buy something, so they have a track record of where I walk through. Now, let me give you another example. Now, first, you still have to think about what's wrong with that. What's the good thing, what's the bad thing. Now, let me come closer to another very borderline. If you have ever used Gmail before, okay, Google site, in the Gmail, I do not know if you experienced that. While you're doing your Gmail with all the incoming email, and when you're sending something out, of course, on two sides of the Gmail main page, there's an advertisement. And some of the time, those advertisements has content or content very much tailored to the last few emails you were writing. If your email is writing about something very specific, you will discover that the product or service advertised on the left or right of the Gmail bar is very much tailored to what we were talking about. I do not know if you check it now, particularly those of you who use Gmail over the Valentine's Day, okay? You may discover that if you have already sent your loved one some loving message, it might have some very interesting thing for you. Now, the question is, I remember I asked the class this last time, or maybe in another class, do you believe no one is reading your email except you and the person who is receiving your email? Or you may say that those guys will say, no, we will never read your email. But our machine is very intelligent. Some of the keywords on the title of the email will be analyzed and then will give you something closer to that. Okay. This is closer to peeking into your personal life and stuff. Some of these. Okay. We are talking about ethics today, and particularly about business ethics. Now, what we're talking about is some of the time when we use a service provided by a company, in such a way we have to accept the terms of usage. And when we accept the terms of usage, we read very carefully. They are actually telling us before we use the system that something like this was going to happen. So don't get surprised. Now, you have already signed terms of reference saying that you accept this kind of things before we let you use our system. And now we're doing something which is according to what you agree to. That's why you need to check the terms of reference very carefully. And then I remember last time I told you a story about last summer when I brought my family and 3 kids to Hong Kong. We would like to pay a visit to the 101 Tower, a very tall building, and each of us has to pay a ticket. And then by the time we finished paying, the guy in the front desk said, no, don't go yet, you need to fill out the forms here. I wonder what kind of form it is. I thought it's some kind of medical declarations because we're going so hard. But when I look at it very carefully, it's a form which said, by writing in this form, you agree to give us, this company, your personal data for the following reasons. I say it's absent. They're asking you to fill out the form to collect your personal data. For some reason, they say they have every right to use the personal data. Just a minute to go up to the tower. And then I remember I showed you, I argued with the kid, not the kid, the guy over there said, I'm not going to fill that up. If you were the one, I just write down my name and then tourist and then sign. I would never give my personal data there. But many people are willing to complete filling up the whole form before they go out. Business ethics and social responsibility. So you see that there's a lot of very interesting things that brings up today when we talk something about this. And definitely, this is a very interesting talk here if I let you continue with an eloquent example. But here we are with a softened versions.
Corporate social responsibility. Are you familiar with the term corporate social responsibility? It all started back in the 70s. The Club of Rome, a group of scholars, thinkers, executives, economists, and others who took on the task of laying out the future of industrial growth, invented the concept of sustainable development. Ah, sustainable development. Does that ring a bell? At a time when resources are becoming more scarce and the population is growing, the challenge now facing people, governments, and businesses, all of us in fact, is to find the most sustainable forms of growth possible. And today, the trend is unstoppable. 1972, the Stockholm Earth Summit set out a wide-ranging plan for international action to fight pollution. 20 years later, the Rio de Janeiro Earth Summit defined economic progress, social justice, and environmental protection as the 3 pillars of regional sustainable development. The basis for action by the business world in support of local communities was established. And all over the world, businesses have opened their doors to partnerships with local residents. They are investing money and taking initiatives in conducting and coordinating community support programs in the field and becoming a trusted partner in the process. Such businesses have put social responsibility at the heart of their strategy. Today, every company is asking itself, what practical steps can we take to improve the day-to-day lives of local residents? From a social standpoint, the company can work in each community to address local aspirations, assist with training, create local jobs, and give support to associations that are working towards the public good. In terms of economic development, the company can help develop a local skills network. By making its expertise or training resources available to local businesses, it can create a win-win strategy that promotes the local economy and yields access to valuable expertise. Finally, with regard to the environment, its task is to ensure that, as often as possible, its business activities take into account the need to protect and enhance local ecosystems. In addition to reducing its air, water, and soil emissions, the company can work with its employees to set up volunteer activities or take action to clean rivers, transform vacant lots into vegetable gardens, encourage reforestation, and teach school children about recycling. There is no limit to the steps that can be taken. With Alstom, local communities can count on CSR every step of the way. Take South Africa, for instance, where Alstom has been operating for over a century. This immense country has a truly critical need for economic and social development. Education is moving forwards with Alstom. In South Africa, access to knowledge is key to development. For Alstom, helping people broaden their knowledge means on a daily level providing access to vocational training, offering internships, career development programs, creating an academic chair in clean energy, granting scholarships, and more. But it also takes the form of a partnership with the Maths Center, an organization that works to improve conditions for maths and science education in schools. Economic development is always a priority with Alstom. In South Africa, Alstom is strengthening local industry by helping to improve the skills of craftsmen and engineers in the energy sector. To date, 650 craftsmen and 175 engineers and technicians have received training. The result is that a new network of qualified subcontractors is emerging, able to meet Alstom's needs and those of the energy sector as a whole. And finally, with Alstom, the world has a partner in preserving the environment. Alstom is conducting projects in South Africa that are educating and training communities in ways that preserve their natural heritage. These projects include the development of environment classes. When children learn how to create a vegetable patch, recover waste, collect rainwater, and so on, the school becomes a means of conveying how important the environment is for their living conditions, and helps students carry that message to the rest of their family. These and many other initiatives are encouraged by proactive laws passed by local authorities. Through its actions, Alstom aims to contribute to social progress and environmental preservation by providing technological solutions that meet energy and transport needs. The group is assuming its responsibility with regard to its neighbors in the community.
Because of the time constraint, let me just tell you the meaning behind this in the context of corporate social responsibility. If I somehow in the immediate future would like to set up a company in Macau, definitely as someone who set up a company, I want to do something good, and in return of that, I got profits and I become stronger and stronger. My business development, so I become wealthy. But from the perspective of this video, the company, besides doing good from the perspective of profit making, they also give you a statement of purpose of how the company consider their social responsibility is in the area where they're developing. For example, in this particular context, doing sustainable development in the context of environment and also the educations of the children there. So from this point of view, social responsibility could be initiated company by company based on the missions of the company. Besides what we would like to say, as a person, what do you want to achieve in life? And people will tell you, my dream is as follows. But after I have achieved my dream, this is what I want to see happen. So from the perspective of corporate social responsibility, we want to see that this is a positive force to do something good in the society. When it's a positive force to do something good in the society, it drives the society towards a higher ethical standard. So what is happening in China today, we see a lot of pollutions. You see, they are polluting a lot of the area in China in such a way, even Beijing. Every year we have less than how many days of clear sky. Because in the process of development, they sacrifice the environment a lot because they believe that it's the fact of life. And so, love, this is a very interesting thing. When we talk about social responsibility, each one of us need to think about what we need to do as an individual. An easiest example, when you live in a dormitory or in a residential college, what if you want your room clean, so all of the rubbish will be taken out your room in the corridor, and when it is in the corridor, you never cared about this. Now, it's impossible. We cannot do something like this. If you want a clean environment, beside my room is made clean, I have to take care of the corridor. Okay? And so we have to take good care of the waste. But the picture of the industrial development picture inside China for many of the heavyweight industry is they just pour the waste into the river. And the river is the living water for many people. And they never cared about what's going to happen to those people downstream when the waste, the poisons, parts of the river. And they just keep burning the coals and they pollute the air, and then when the environment is not recycled enough, you have to suffer the same. The particles when you breathe into our lungs could induce lung cancer for many people. So you know what I'm talking about. And I would like to recommend that you continue, when you go home, to study the important information, be it a video or be it a reading, which is very important. For example, could you have opened the door? For example, this is a very interesting talk. They talk about clinical trials. When they try to do some clinical experiment to create something positive, they help people from a scientific point of view. What do they need to be prepared? What the public need to know about this? For example, the drug that Greg mentioned. Some of the drugs, when it is ready to be used, become very expensive. Okay? But what if we could have some alternatives, okay, that people will tell you is not safe, all right? So you can try it. So this is a very interesting study or talk which talks about ethics from the Harry Actor Lax Foundations, okay? So you're not obliged to read them all, but if you have time to just take a look at one or two, it will broaden your horizons. Now, I'm going to stop here today, and I'm going to take attendance, and then I will give you at least 15 minutes to talk about yourself, to come up with your pair number for those who have not paired yet. Okay? Allow me to take attendance now. Kenny is here. Sarah, thank you. And then In Chong, thank you. Joanna, thank you. And then Yusini, thank you. Lucker, yes. Shelley, thank you. Nicole, thank you. Nana, yes. Vicky, yes. Helen, thank you. Joanne, Thank you. Winston, thank you. And then Greg, yes. Kathy, yes. Cersei, yes. Wendy, thank you. Thank you very much. You're almost here. So, for those of you who have not been here, you're free to talk. Let me show you the list here. You can come together and let me know your decisions, okay? So Kenny, you can talk with, let's say, Lavelle, and then you can talk with Lena, you can talk with Vicky, and you can talk with Greg. Yes, only this 5 persons. Remember, since we have an odd number of students, the orphan left over, I will give you a chance to choose your pair. Okay? So, do you have any idea which one you want to get pair with? Greg and Lavelle? No? Yeah. Do you have any preference? Yeah?
I don't think I'm going to come back to business.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Greg. So, do you have any? Anyone, okay? So, let's say Vicky, Kenny. Okay, so Kenny, can you go with Kenny? Okay, and then let's say, welcome. Let's say, and after that, Lena. Have you found your partner yet? You have Vicky here. You want to join this? Okay, but now let's try to see. If I let you join, then let me count the number of students here. Greg seems to me that he would like to quit. Let's see. In case we have, now we got one left, Nina and Vicky, okay? Now, so if I let Vicky join your pair of preference, Nina, do you have your pair of preference to join on your own? Which pair do you want to join? Because if I let one, that means we might have 2 pairs with 3 persons. It's still acceptable. Do you want to join? Do you have any pair? Do you want to join this pair? Okay, that's good. Amelia. Yourself. Okay. So let me just fix that for you so that you can see that. And of course, if you have classes to go, you're free to go, but otherwise you can stay until you fix the problem. Let me make sure that I'm entering into the what's your pair number? Pair 6, right? Okay. I will get others. You are set. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Yes, yes, sure. Since this is an in-class sharing, there is no for example, you're doing so you want to start with your journal. And you start with journal stuff. And this topic of reading list. So that means your sharing is based on a specific topic selected from your reading list and which is developed from the journal. And so what you need to do is from the journal, you at least 1 to at most 3 observations of information technology. For example, this is a very good question. What is information technology? The next slide tells us. That will become your first observation. Okay, at least 1, at most 3 observations. So if this is good observation, you want to show us a video, it must be shorter than 10 minutes because your maximum sharing time. Oh, that's good enough. So this is very good. And then if these represent also your observations, okay, you're trying to make it, you do not need to have a complete sentence, but you make it very short. So and anything related to computer technology, that's I would say this is very strict. That's good. So these are observations. And again, with observation, you will come to a question with I. So you ask a question, what does each one of these observations mean? Okay? Yes. No, you just in your slide, you share with the student, based on the observation, I have come up with the following question. And it was free. To ask questions about IT. Yes. You don't need to answer. You can provide the answer. Definitely. You do not have much time. The idea of sharing it, you have shared with your classmate a topic of interest, giving them your observation, you give them some of your thinking, which is questions. And of course, if they're interested, since you also produce this in the public discussion forum, you can engage them in the discussions. So the second thing I would like to see after being shared is your questions based on interpretation. And then finally, the A means based on the observations and based on the question to ask, you have come up with at least 1 application. That means lessons to be learned. Lessons to be learned. Do you see the meaning of that? You have a logical sequence. You select a topic, and that is called information technology. You provide 3 observations of this topic, okay, using not more than 2 slides, and you provide some questions from 1 to 3 questions of this topic, based on the observations, which you do not need to answer because you don't have much time. But these questions itself should be able to stimulate students or fellow students' interest to think with you. And then you provide at least 1 application that is lesson learned, so that the class will understand how you handle this topic in such a way that it benefits you and also benefit you. So that is the basic framework of personal sharing. So if you have time, definitely you can think about what I said to you. That's the basics of the mind share. And definitely, at the end, you have, after the conclusion, add some references like you did, right? So these are the references to run through, except for the YouTube reading, right? That's the basic, that's the basic. Because that is what we call inquiry-based learning. You select a topic, you do some discovery of the topic in terms of observation, you provide some questions for the topic in terms of thinking, and you provide some applications of the topic that represent the lessons learned. Because no one can learn all the things about the topic, but selectively speaking, when you learn as you share findings, and that's also the basis for you to write the detailed chapters. Is it okay? Yes, yes. I think you're very hardworking, right? Have I given you some feedback already? Yeah. That means I'm telling you exactly the same thing as what you have to do in your presentations, right? Because I want to be consistent in my idea of method. So whenever you do a topic observation, you actually discover irrelevant information. Okay? When you do interpretation, you actually analyze the implications by coming up with meaningful questions. Okay? And so when you do the application, it's actually extracting the lesson learned from the discovery and analysis, and that will become another side of the learning. Yeah, but you see, when I try to tell you what you have to do, you can actually mix it on forms with this whole. For the interpretation, you try to do a complete sentence of questions, and for the application, do it in small paragraph. So that is increasing in terms of the amount of your expressions. But definitely, in your PowerPoint, you cannot do less than you write on itself. So that is what you're learning. Hopefully, it's not too much, but that's the thing. Do you understand? Okay. So then, thank you very much. Let me just make sure I finish the grouping. Okay. Okay, see you on first day. So that's it for today's CISG 114, Section 1 on February the 24th, 2014, the first day in week number 3.